Hey guys, welcome to the Paramedic Preload. My name is Nathan.
I'm the other guy, known as Josh.
And today we're going over Patho, and we have a special guest with us.
The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Lee Gillum.
Good morning, everybody.
So Lee, I know we're going to kind of break this into a mini series, and we're going to start off, and you kind of have a good starting place for us. So where would you like to take us today?
Yeah, so let's talk about tonicity. So before we get into really deep and acid base, we're going to talk about tonicity because it's really one of the building blocks about how substances, chemicals, atoms, molecules move back and forth across semi-permeable membranes. So let's take a few minutes and talk about tonicity. When we talk about tonicity, there are three types of tonicity. Remember, we have isotonic, we have hypotonic, and we have hypertonic. Now, if we remember how we conjugate medical terminology, we know that the prefix iso means the same. The prefix hypo means less than or low. And the prefix hyper means more or greater than. So we need to remember those three pieces of terminology. Tonicity actually refers to the amount of substance in a liquid. And the great way I like to try to explain this is if you have a glass of tea. I love tea. I'm a Southerner. I like sweet tea.
It's got to be sweet tea.
I don't like 5 pounds of sugar in my tea. So when I make my tea, I always ask for sweet and low or Splenda or something like that. So if you were just to take a regular tea, a regular glass of tea, and compare it to another glass of tea that comes out to the table. So if somebody at your table just drinks regular tea that's not sweet,
Nathan.
That would be me.
okay, and everybody's tea on the table is regular tea that's not sweet once it's delivered, we call that isotonic. So everybody's tea is exactly the same. It's isotonic, unless you're British and you like to put other things in there like cream, milk and whatnot. Everybody's tea delivered to the table is considered isotonic. So now here's where it gets really fun. So being that I like sweet and low or Splenda, I like to take 2 packets of my sweet and low and put it in my tea. Now my tea is considered hypertonic in relation to the other tea. It has more sugar. So more sugar. So let's say I've put 2 packets in here, so I've got 2, but in this glass I've got 0. So therefore, this tea on the table, my tea is hypertonic in comparison to Sidekick Josh. Okay? Now, we won't talk about Nathan. You know,
At least disparagingly.
I know. Doesn't he like cream in his tea? No.
No, straight black.
Straight black tea.
Sun tea off the driveway.
There we go. So, but my tea is hypertonic. Now, if we compare the regular tea back over here to my tea, this tea is hypotonic. This is kind of where it gets a little bit confusing. Even though this tea here on my right, that I'm drawing the arrows at, has no sugar in it, it has less sugar or no sugar than does the tea that has 2 packets of sweet and low. Hence, the tea that has sweet and low is considered to be hypertonic, and the tea that does not have any sweet and low is considered to be hypotonic. Hypotonic versus hypertonic. Pause. So now that we've got kind of this clean screen here on the screen, let's take a look at just a general beaker. When we deal with biological physiology. Everything that deals with tonicity in the body deals with what we consider to be a semi-permeable membrane. So the red square here is a beaker. The blue is an SMP. Let me back up. Not an SMP. Semi-permeable membrane, SPM. Apparently my coffee or tea level this morning is a little low. And I can't spell. So SPM, semi-permeable membrane. What is a semi-permeable membrane, you ask? A semi-permeable membrane is either a cell wall that is comprised of protein molecules, a cell wall that's comprised of collagen, a cell wall that's comprised of fatty acids, a cell wall that's comprised of amino acids. So various cells that have various structure and function in the body have various types of semi-permeable membrane. These semi-permeable membranes allow for the passage of water into the cell with other solutes along with other chemicals such as sodium, potassium, sugar, and allow for the leakage or the passing out of substances that are made, such as amino acids, such as RNA, and other proteins that the cell actually manufactures. When we talk about cellular physiology, think about the cell being just a small city in and of itself that makes things. So you have to have things that come in, and you have to have things that leave. Otherwise, the cell will get big and explode. Or lyse, Lysis. We don't want it to lyse. So here we have a semi-permeable membrane. So I'm going to kind of draw some round circles here. And these would be my water molecules. So circle equals H. All right, so let's talk about in cellular physiology how this relates. So we have here a beaker. And in that beaker, we're going to have a semi-permeable membrane. And that semi-permeable membrane is just a membrane. In the cells, cell walls in the body are created of long protein chains. They're created from cholesterol, carbohydrates, various amino acids that are bound together. So in the body, we consider a semi-permeable membrane to be a cellular wall. Now, depending upon the cell structure and function in the body, that cell wall might be comprised of various substances in various proportions, cholesterol, protein chains, and amino acids stuck together. Within that cell wall, there's other mechanisms there. There's what we call sodium and potassium pumps within that cell wall. There are lysosomes in that cell wall. Sodium potassium pumps pump substances into the cell and take substances out of the cell with action or energy, utilizing energy. They're a pump. So think about a sump pump in your house. If you have a basement, think about a sump pump on a boat. These all require energy to function. Lysosomes actually are like trash compactors. You have that cell structure here, and it kind of gets a small bubble inside the cell, and that bubble migrates to the cell wall and releases substances out. So that's oftentimes how structures and substances within the cell are leaked out of the cell, is through lysosomes. Think about lysosomes as giant trash bags. You take it out of your house, so the lysosome goes out of the house to the dumpster and then gets picked up by the trash company, however frequently throughout the week. So here on the right, we have that semi-permeable membrane. Within that beaker, we're going to draw little circles here, which is going to represent just water. So that circle is going to be H2O. All right. So I'm also going to put something else in here. And we're going to put a salt. Okay. So a salt I'm going to define this here on my left. In the terms of salts, this is going to be any chemical, not table salt. So it could be sodium, it could be potassium, it could be chloride, it could be ATP, it could be sugar. Okay? The salts are substances that move back and forth. So think of your body as a giant mud pie. We are nothing more than water and salts put together. Salts is dirt. So if you want to think about that, we're a giant mud pie. We're water and dirt combined together. Okay, so that's the best way to think about this. So going back over here to my salt, if I have 4 salts on this side, and I have 1 salt on the right side, my left compared to my right, in comparison, this side is hypertonic, meaning it has more salts or more dirt, if you will. So let's make that really simple. And if we compare the right side to the left side, I only have 1 salt on this side. So in comparison, my right side to my left side is hypotonic. So again, hypertonic is that side that is greater in solute concentration. So a solute, S-O-L-U-T-E, is the amount of salts or substances dissolved in a fluid. And we'll just keep this simple and call it water. So a solute is literally a salt or a substance dissolved in water. So in relation to my left side here, left, and then we have right. So in relation to the left side is hypertonic in relationships to the right side. The right side is hypotonic in relation to the left side. So this side here is hypotonic in relation to the left side, which is hypertonic. So before we talk about how do we make these substances, how does the cellular membrane and fluid shift and the salt shifts, how does that occur? Let's talk about how things move. The movement of substances within the cell and to the outside of the cell and within the cell. So we're going to focus on diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. So active transport requires energy. The great example I gave you of that previously was a sodium-potassium pump. We'll talk more about this after a while, but that sodium-potassium pump uses cellular energy. Cellular energy is always ATP, and it uses energy to move potassium into the cell and take sodium out of the cell. Okay? So, again, sodium-potassium pumps is an active transport mechanism which uses energy in the form of ATP within the cell. ATP is adenosine triphosphate to pump sodium into the cell and pump potassium into the cell and pull sodium out of the cell. So let's go ahead and take this off real quick and let's talk about these other 2 mechanisms. Now there's other mechanisms I'm not going to talk about briefly. I may touch on them a little bit later, but I really want to focus on diffusion, osmosis, and active transport mechanisms. So diffusion is the movement of dirt. So diffusion is dirt. And what did I tell you earlier? Dirt is the salts. So that could be sugar, it could be sodium, it could be potassium, it could be chloride, that's Cl. It could be anything that's moving into or out of the cell. So diffusion is the movement of substances, i.e. dirt. Remember I said we're nothing more than a giant mud pie. So the movement of substances, dirt, into or out of the cell. Okay? Now this diffusion occurs from an area of greater concentration to an area of lesser concentration. Okay? Key concept. The movement of dirt is always from an area of greater concentration. Greater concentration just means there's more dirt on one side of the semipermeable membrane than on the other side. Again, movement of dirt from an area of greater concentration where it's more concentrated, where there's more of it in comparison to the other side. So if we were to bring some medical terminology to light here, this would be from an area that is considered hypertonic. There's that word.
Bringing it full circle.
You didn't think about that. It's moving an area, substances from an area that's hypertonic to a area that's hypotonic. Again, greater concentration, lesser concentration. Okay? Greater concentration, lesser concentration. So let's come back to the right side of the screen. We've got this side that is hypertonic, the left side, and the right side is hypotonic. If we were to use our little concentration thing here, this is greater concentration, this is lesser concentration. Now let's talk about the movement. So the first thing that has to happen is we start to pull. And we literally pull substances, salts, if you will, from that area of greater concentration to an area of lesser concentration. So there's a rhyme we remember when we talk about diffusion, and that's salts follow water.
Right.
The reason salts follow water is everything in the body and in nature tries to seek an equilibrium. That equilibrium is really important. Apparently I can't spell very well. Equilibrium.
Glad I wasn't the one up there trying to spell that.
Yeah, add that to your spelling quiz, right? So everything in the body, everything in nature always seeks an equilibrium. Everything in society seeks an equilibrium. Everything in the world, in the universe, always seeks an equilibrium. That's how things move back and forth. Atoms, molecules, everything in nature. It's really, really cool. And yes, I do like trains. But everything moves. The quantum level, the physical level, the biochemical level, everything moves and always wants to be seeking an equilibrium. So this equilibrium is literally drawing or pulling salts across that semipermeable membrane. So remember we have that semipermeable membrane here, okay? That's what this little light blue line is. And the water is literally pulling stuff as if a tug of war, pulling stuff across. Now, here's where things get just a tad complicated. Because the salt is being pulled across, we call that osmotic pressure. The water is literally trying to pull the sodium across, or the salts across, or the potassium across. It's trying to pull it across that semi-permeable membrane because it's seeking to balance everything out. That equal sign here in the middle, it's seeking to create a concentration on both sides of that semi-permeable membrane that is equal or Isotonic. Remember, equal means isotonic. Things that are equal are considered substances, fluids, concentrations that are equal are considered to be isotonic. Pause. So I know that sounds kind of crazy. How is an osmotic pressure pulling things across? Well, it's because that concentration on both sides, you've got that semipermeable membrane down the middle. Think about a semipermeable membrane as a coffee filter. Those that drink coffee every day, you put the filter in the pup, or you put the K-cup into your coffee maker, and miraculously, 3 minutes later, you have coffee, unless you kind of got an old school system. But, or you're drinking tea with cream in it. So that filter is literally filtering things across. Your lungs do this. Your kidneys do this. They'll filter substances. They allow some substances to come across and don't prevent others from coming across. The placental barrier does this. So a lot of different things in the body have these membranes which prevent or limit substances that come across. The blood-brain barrier, the same thing. So you have these various mechanisms within the body that help maintain tonicity or concentration of substances back and forth. Because when you draw too much salt or too much water across that semipermeable membrane, the body gets out of whack. That's how we get third spacing of fluid, such as in congestive heart failure. You get fluid backed up in the periphery, in the hands, the feet. You get ascites in the abdomen. You get fluid in the lungs. This is what can happen when patients become septic, because you have poor vascular tone, which causes the blood vessels to become leaky. You develop hypotension, but with that hypotension, you have the free movement of lots of other salts and solutes and fluids back and forth, and this is hazardous to the body. This can also happen in patients who've suffered significant trauma. When they have significant musculoskeletal trauma, you have myoglobin, which backs up into the kidneys. The kidneys prevent the leaking of myoglobin across a semipermeable membrane and prevent it from being peed out. Remember, the kidneys filter blood. When that filtrate is urine and you leach it out, it's peeing. We're not trying to be gross or disrespectful of how the human body works. Let's just put it in simple terms here. So you pee that urine out. Well, unfortunately, since myoglobin can't pass the semipermeable membrane,
You clog up.
You clog up, exactly. It makes concrete in the renal tubules. So again, back to all this osmotic and pressure and diffusion of osmosis. Let's just take the kidneys, for example. The kidneys are constantly trying to pull waste products across. So the urine, in some instances, maybe when that urine starts to form, it may be less concentrated on one side of that renal tubule of, let's say, potassium than the other side. Well, guess what? Potassium gets drawn across. Same thing with sodium. Let's use a true diabetic. Let's talk about hyperglycemic situations. Patients who are hyperglycemic, back until 1910, 1920, the key way to check to see if somebody was to be a diabetic was the physician would literally taste the patient's urine.
Yeah.
I know.
Was it for?
Gross, right? Boy, we've come a long way.
Very happy about being where we are in society now.
We've come a long way from leeches and tasting urine. But wait, we still use leeches when we do limb reattachment, right? But I'm not going to stand in line to test that urine.
Thank goodness.
That's why we have glucometers. Exactly. Yeah, I know. So, but because that sugar would literally get pulled, there's so much sugar in the blood, free sugar floating in the bloodstream, that would be pulled across that semipermeable membrane, the renal tubules in the kidneys, and leak into the outflow, the urine, the waste product. Urine is waste product. So that's a great example about tonicity, hypertonic situations. And how that substance moves across. And it moves across because the water on the opposite side, the water here on the opposite side is of a lesser concentration or hypotonic than the opposite side. So water is literally pulling, having an osmotic pressure to pull substances across. Pull substances across. So think about osmosis as water. H2O. The movement of water is osmosis. So we talked about diffusion. So all these green lines up here are diffusion. We're diffusing salts or substances across from an area of hypertonic or greater concentration to an area of hypotonic or lesser concentration. Now let's talk about the movement of water and how water moves. Let's go to purple. So water, osmosis is the movement of water from an area of lesser concentration. And we deal with concentration. This is a solvent or solute concentration to greater concentration. So we have less water concentration, less water and substance concentration on the right side. This side is hypotonic. On the left side, we have greater solute and water concentration, so it's considered hypertonic. So again, hypotonic, less concentrated. It's diluted tea. This is the tea that's set down in front of you that I don't like because it's straight tea. It has no sugar in it. Remember, I like 2 packets of Sweet and Low. So think about the left side being my 2 packets of Sweet and Low. The right side, well, I got a dab of sugar in there. All right, so we're now going to osmose water. So water literally likes to get pulled across that semi-permeable membrane.
Follow the salts.
Exactly. So that rhyme that I gave you with diffusion where the salts flow toward the water, okay? But where the salt goes, water flows. So if salt's being moved across, water's here, but literally water's going to get pulled across to where the salts are. So these salts really are having a magnetic pull, if you will, for lack of an analogy, that magnetic pull for the water, okay? Things that are salty, and let's just take food for example. If you eat popcorn that's really salty at the movie theaters,
Yeah.
what do you want to take a drink of?
I want my water.
You want your water.
I want my soda.
Nathan?
Yeah, I'm going to be reaching for water.
You're going to wait for free water, yeah. You know, if I'm at the movies, I'm going to have a drink of my Coke because nothing like going to the movies. You got to have popcorn and soda. It's about the only time I'll drink soda.
Water in
There is
soda.
water.
Yeah,
There is.
Yeah. It's healthy.
and cost.
It is. Yeah.
And
In moderation.
Yeah.
So osmosis is that movement of water from an area of lesser concentration to an area of greater concentration. So this area, hypertonic, it's higher concentrated with water and the salt versus the right side, which is hypotonic and less concentrated. All right. So if you have any questions about tonicity, give us a shout, give us a bump, email us back here at the website, and we'll try to answer.
I do got a question for you.
Sure.
So I got it. Diffusion equals dirt.
Right.
So that's going to be our salts moving
Correct.
from one side of the semi-permeable membrane to the other.
Exactly.
Osmosis is our water.
Correct.
And it transfuses through the semi-permeable membrane as well.
Correct.
Right? So if I'm making my coffee, I got my coffee filter. I throw my coffee in the top because it's all ground up. And in the bottom, hopefully, percolates through. The water and the salt both pass through the semi-permeable membrane. So what you're saying is this occurs simultaneously.
It does. This is instantaneously occurring. It doesn't wait for one to get pulled across and then, it's going to push the water back to the other side.
So we have water and salts both shifting across this
shifting.
membrane at once.
Correct. This is a passive process. Unlike sodium potassium pumps, which require energy, ATP, to move substances.
Because we're going to be going against gradients and stuff like that.
Exactly.
We'll get into later, but
Exactly.
this is occurring simultaneously, and this doesn't require any cellular energy. There's energy involved, but not cellular energy that's having to be expended.
Think about it from a cellular perspective. If everything in the body required energy to function, we would be consuming really high calories all day long, or we'd be really thin. We'd either be taking in lots of food substances, or we'd be really thin because our metabolisms would be so incredibly high.
Yeah.
So you have to have these passive processes that are occurring all the time to limit the amount of energy that the body uses.
Yeah.
Because the body needs energy in nervous electrical signal transmission. It needs energy to make the heart work. It needs some energy to make the blood vessels contract. It needs energy for the brain to work. So I can talk, so you can talk, so we can listen, so we can do those active things.
Okay.
If we don't have enough energy, things fail.
Absolutely.
We become comatose, vegetative, watered and pointed towards the light. Watered and fed twice daily and pointed towards the light. So I'm glad you brought that up, because yes, this is always occurring all the time, even when you sleep. It's always occurring. Otherwise, our bodies wouldn't function.
Awesome. Thank you, Lee. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's just interesting when you look at the body and you realize that everything with the body is all just about trying to keep that state, right?
Exactly.
And so we're constantly doing that, whether it be when we're taking a breath, which is where we're trying to change pressures inside the body. And that's all based on pressures. You got your diffusion, which is going to be based on, moving one side concentration to the other, trying to equalize things.
Yeah.
And the body is really about that homeostasis and trying to equalize essentially kind of everything in it.
It is. And if we want to take that one step further, let's think about true homeostasis. In true homeostasis, you're dead.
Because everything equals.
True.
Everything's equal. Nothing's moving. You have no electrical conduction. You have no nervous energy conduction. You have no movement of sodium potassiums. You have no fluid being moved.
It's a very, very stable state.
Yeah.
Yes.
Homeostasis. I mean, yes, the universe is constantly seeking a balance and seeking homeostasis.
Yes.
But once that occurs, things cease to move.
Yep.
Things cease to exist. Things cease to function. An engine that has seized up now ceases to function.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's a great point, but all this passive movement allows life to occur, whether it's single cell organisms, parameciums, bacteria, white blood cells in your body, the fungus on your car window, that yellow fungus that we get in the spring, or mold, or trees, or grass. Everything has to move.
Yep.
If none of that moves, life doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
So life is just such an extremely complex biomechanical situation. I think it's really unique in how all this starts to work and starts to function, and how electrons and atoms like to track to other things, and a lot of these very minuscule chemical and physics principles at the chemical nature cause a lot of this movement to occur, and I really digress. So
No, this is good. This is absolutely foundational to what we'll be covering in later topics.
excellent.
I think this is definitely a great start to it. And this is one of those that, I think everybody can go back and review and look over. And the cool part about this being on a video is video podcast. You can always go back and just review it a couple times. And of course, we do have a comment section where people can add their comments and, or send emails or whatnot based on this podcast. So we thank you for taking the time with us to sit down and kind of make this foundational basis as we move forward in making some more of these pathophysiology videos.
Sounds great. Happy to be here.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you guys on the next one.
See you. Out.